Hi! So at the moment I don't really know what I'm going to name this video yet, because it's about the situation in Cubase where you want to do things together. So certain actions like edit actions, or maybe actions in the mixer, or assignments that you want to do in one go instead of all separately, which takes a lot more time. Maybe you can call it grouping, but this has definitely nothing to do with group tracks, and some things that I want to discuss have nothing to do with grouping or groups at all actually. So is that enough mystery for you to keep watching this video? I promise you will learn something new. So let's go. Now this video is actually inspired by a question that I got from a viewer today. Let's have a look. Because he asked, hi, I imported 4 audio tracks at once. The strange thing is that clicking on a single one selects all 4 tracks, and I see in the right corner above each track a symbol, never seen, like 3 atoms in a triangle. What does it mean? Thank you. So I realized that he probably grouped those tracks or events by mistake. So that's what I said in my answer. And then I also realized that I don't have a video about it on my channel yet. So I found a video about it on the excellent Music Tech Tuition channel. I'll provide a link to that channel in the description. And I also realized that this way of grouping things in Cubase was not the only way that you can group things in Cubase or combine actions in Cubase. So I figured, let's make a video about it. So let's start with the grouping feature that this question was about. So this is a project that I'm currently still producing, and what you're seeing over here is one lead vocal track, and there's a double vocal track, and there's another double vocal track. Both tracks are doubling the lead vocal basically. So imagine that I now want to do the same edits on those doubled vocal tracks. There's a very quick way in Cubase, because you can basically select them together and then press Ctrl G from grouping, and that's also possible by going to Edit, Group. You see Ctrl G as a shortcut. And if I now do any edits to these tracks, for example, I may decide that I do not want to have a double on this part over here. So I can just remove it. Maybe I also do not want to have a double for the pre-chorus here. Select it over here, delete it. Maybe I want to have a long fade in over here. You can see whatever I do on the one track, it's copied to the other track. And actually I cannot even select one track because they're both selected together. You can see that they are grouped by that little icon over here in the top right corner. So this is a very easy way to do the same thing to multiple events in the project window. If you want to ungroup these tracks again, you can just select all of them, press Ctrl U, which is from Edit, Ungroup over here. And as you can see, now they are individually editable and selectable again. Now this does also work for tracks which are not the same track type. Let me show you. For example, I have some MIDI tracks down here. Let's drag one up. And let's actually just make this one event again. And I can now also group this audio track and this MIDI track. Ctrl G. And you can see that if I make a cut anywhere or delete a certain part, the edit gets done on both the MIDI track as well as the vocal track. A great quick time saver, I would say. Now this was a temporary grouping of tracks, of course, but you can also group them more permanently by putting them in a folder track and enabling the group editing feature. Let's have a look at that. So I reverted back to the start situation, and let's now say that I want to always edit these doubled vocals together. So put them together in a more permanent group. So in that case, I can select these 2 tracks. I can say Project, Track Folding, move selected tracks to new folder. Let's call it doubles. And let's actually put the group channel to which they are routed in this doubles folder as well. And if I now enable the group editing feature, it says the tracks in this folder are not completely in sync. Group editing could fail. And that's probably because the ends are not lining up. So let's actually line them up more exactly. Try again. There you go. Now Cubase doesn't complain. And again, you see I cannot select these tracks separately because they're always selected together. Any edit I do happens on both tracks. And this grouping I would typically use if I'm sure that I always want to edit these tracks together. For example, if it's a multi-tracked instrument where you record the instrument with multiple microphones, then you basically always want to edit those microphones in the same way. Like a multi-track drum, for example, or maybe even a multi-track guitar. I actually have a separate video about that, which I'll link in the description as well. So this is also a great way of grouping tracks and speeding up your workflow by using this grouping feature. Now before I go on for more of these time savers by combining, grouping things in Cubase, if you like this video or find it useful at all, please give it a big thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, which helps in spreading this video to more people. And it also helps if you subscribe to the channel and ring the little bell icon so you get notified when I publish another video. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can use the super thanks button below the video, which is kind of a virtual tip jar, or use any of the affiliate links in the description if you want to buy something at one of these stores. If you click any of those affiliate links and buy something at those stores, anything at those stores, I will get a small commission without any additional cost to you, and that will greatly support the channel. So let's move on to the next grouping time saver. Now, so far we've been looking at combining things in the project view, but similar ways of combining things are also available in the mixer view. Let's have a look. Because if I open my Cubase mixer by pressing F3, you can see that I also have 3 background vocal tracks here. And how about if I wanted to reduce the level of those vocal tracks all by the same amount? Now, in reality, I have to say these are also routed to this background vocal group track over here. So I could just lower the group level as well. But let's say I don't want to do that. I just want to lower the level into the group by lowering the individual fader of these tracks. So right now you can see if I move one fader, the other faders don't move. But there's a quick way to do that in the mixer view, and that's by selecting the channels that you want to group and then pushing the Q link, the quick link button over here. You can see that it says temporary link mode, sync all touch parameters of selected channels. So if I push this, and if I now move one fader, you can see that the other faders move accordingly. I can also easily put the same insert on all of these channels now. For example, if I want to put Pro Q3 on all of them, I can just select Pro Q3 here, and you can see Pro Q3 is instantiated on all of those tracks. If I decide to remove Pro Q3 is removed from all of those tracks. If I want to unlink them, I can push Q-link again, and you can see that right now they're individually controllable again. So in concept, this is quite similar to using that grouping and ungrouping in the project view, in that it's meant for a temporary grouping, do some editing, and then undo the grouping again. If you want to more permanently group these tracks, then you're getting more into the realm of VCA faders, which is a different kind of grouping. But I can show you that as well, because I have these 3 tracks selected now, and I can say add VCA fader to selected channels. And you can now see that they're all linked to VCA fader called link 1. I can even say what's being edited over here by that VCA fader. So for example, I want to make sure that the volume can be edited as a group, maybe even the inserts. If I then OK, you can see that if I move this fader, that the volume fader of all 3 background vocal tracks moves as well. And if I insert an EQ, you can see again that Pro Q3 is inserted on all of these channels at the same time. And even if I now edit Pro Q3 on one of these channels, for example, let's do a bell over here. If I then open the other Pro Q3 instances, you can see that all of them basically have the same bell. So also a very nice way of doing things together on multiple channels in the mixer view in a more permanent way than the temporary Q-link feature. But let's move back to the project view now. And in this project view, you can see that a bit further down in the project, I have again 4 background vocal tracks, which are different background vocals from the one I showed you before. And if you pay attention to the routing over here, you can see that all of them are routed to stereo out, stereo out, stereo out, stereo out. But I also have a group track called background vocals over here, and I want to route all of these to that group track. So I could, of course, now do this, assign this one to background vocal, then the next one, but then I would have to repeat it 4 times, and I don't want to do that, of course. So another way to assign all of these together is by selecting them, and you can do that by holding Control and selecting them one by one. Or if you have one selected, you can go to the last one you want to select it and hold Shift. Then it selects all the channels in between as well. And I can then assign the output routing over here while holding Shift and Alt at the same time. So I Shift Alt, select background vocal group track here as routing, and you can now see that all these tracks are routed to the background vocals in one go. Now that also works for inserts actually. So again, if I select all 4 of them, and if I want to put an EQ on here, before I select Pro Q3, I again hold Shift Alt at the same time. I select Pro Q3, and you can now see that I have a Pro Q3 instance in all of these tracks. Now these Pro Q3 instances are not linked now, like you saw in the VCA channel description. They are separate instances which are separately controlled. They were just assigned and inserted in one go. For example, if I put a bell in background vocal 125, then if I look at Pro Q3 of the next one, there is no bell. Now there's one thing that I have to mention with this functionality, because when I initially installed Cubase 13, this was not working anymore. It used to work in Cubase 12 and all previous versions of Cubase, but in Cubase 13 it somehow was not working for me anymore. And kind of by accident I found out that it was caused by this preference setting. If you go to Edit, Preferences, Editing, Project and Mix Console, you have a setting which is called Sync Selection in Project Window and Mix Console. If you disable that, and somehow it was disabled after installing Cubase 13 for me, then you will notice if I now want to assign all of these back to stereo out, for example, let's do it like this. Then the first one is back to stereo out, but the second, third and fourth one are still assigned to the background vocal group. I'm not sure whether this is a bug in Cubase 13, because syncing between project view and mixer window, I don't know how that's related to actually assigning outputs at the same time. I don't know whether it worked like that in Cubase 12 as well, but that setting was just enabled for me and somehow it got disabled when I installed Cubase 13. But it's just something that you need to be aware of if this group assignment is not working for you in the project view. Have a look at this preference and make sure that it's enabled, and then everything should work fine. It did for me at least. Now, this video was not a deep dive with all ins and outs of these functions, but it was more a broad overview of some time-saving combination features that you could use in Cubase, which could really help with your workflow. Let me know if you like that, and also let me know if you want to see any deep dive into one of these features maybe, or if you have more of these combined actions workflow improvements in Cubase, let us know in the comments as well. Always great to learn from each other. Now, if you want to know more about VCA, Ungroup, channels and faders in Cubase, then I already have the video for you, which I'll link over here. Check it out, enjoy, and see you soon.